So yeah, JP, we're really excited to join you again. I know we've done an interview as part of Neon Owl before for your other project, but this time we're super excited to talk specifically about Aeon Mode, which I know is sort of your D&B alias. It's kind of grown into something that's, like really big, really taken off right now across multiple festivals. And we've actually had the privilege of catching your set at Freaky Deaky recently, and we were completely blown away. So just to start things off, do you mind just giving us like a quick background into this project and sort of like how it all started?
Yeah, for sure. It's awesome that you came through to the other show. That's fucking sick. I'm glad you enjoyed it. But yeah, so basically this project is an offshoot of my main Blank project. Most people would know me as Blank, and this is just like a new expressive alias. Again, it's all about drum and bass. I started it, we fully launched it as a separate project, well, quote unquote separate, a few weeks ago with the release of my collab with Metric, a guy from the UK who's one of like my drum and bass like idols sort of thing. So it was really, really cool to be able to start the project off like properly with something like that. Been doing the drum and bass thing since I think 2020 with my release of Alchemy on my Change in Decay EP. And it was my first time really digging back into drum and bass again from my roots as like a pendulum lover back when that was when I really found electronic music was through Pendulum when I was like 15 years old. It was kind of like my first step from metal and rock and all of that world that I was obsessed with to like this new kind of electronic world. And I'd always wanted to like I still listen to those like the albums fucking how many 15 years later or whatever it is, and there's always been a part of me musically. So when I first started producing over 10 years ago, I tried drum and bass. I remember trying drum and bass, and it was just so ridiculously hard and difficult that I just steered away from it like pretty much instantly because I was like, I'm not going to do this justice. So Alchemy was really one of the uh first goes that I had at really kind of trying to do drum and bass again. And it seemed to do really well. It streamed really well. Everyone was like really enjoying it. So I tried it again and did a couple of other drum and bass tracks as Blank, and then sort of had the discussion with my team as to whether or not this is a thing that could be its own thing, because I mean drum and bass, especially in America, was quite polarizing. So like having releasing drum and bass through Blank felt like two separate things. Some people might argue that I would be able to kind of like do it all with the Blank project. It's quite diverse, and that's always been the idea with the project, to be able to do as many genres like as possible. Not try to cram as many genres as possible necessarily, but just be more of like a blank canvas, like be an open book when it comes to something like genre bending and things like that. So, but it just felt like kind of the right move to have the drum and bass thing start to be a little bit separate. So we tinkered with that idea, started doing live shows as Aeon Mode, and then separating like the worlds a little bit and started doing like its own visuals and aesthetic, separating Blank to be more about the earth, which and nature, which is very much part of me as a person, to the Aeon Mode being the opposite thing about the stars and the galaxies and everything else out in the universe, which has been a really, really fun thing to explore artistically. And so yeah, it just kind of like built up into its own thing. We were just gauging interest with a lot of the releases and things like that, and eventually we decided, yeah, it was probably the right move to start separating it out. And I feel like it's been fairly successful so far, and it's also just artistically for me it feels like the right move, because I can then put this sort of separate time and energy and visual and creative energy into this separate sort of vibe, I guess, and the separate like sense of music that I think belongs on its own.
Yeah,
Definitely.
awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think the symbolism with the Earth versus the stars, I think, it's really cool seeing that come to life. I know your upcoming tour will feature kind of both sides of that, which is super awesome. I'm curious to learn a little bit more about, this process of, kind of drawing the two different worlds separately, but kind of still featuring some sort of cohesion. And I guess like one question that I could have off of that as well is like, it's clear like you feel really strongly about D&B, and you have, an incredible range of diversity in your production, right? So you've made everything from, hard dubstep, melodic dubstep, mid-tempo. And it seems like D&B is like the one type of sound that you thought made the most sense to kind of like create a new project around. So do you mind explaining that thought process a little bit more, and sort of like how you're creating like a new brand?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I sort of said, I feel like drum and bass is still but slowly being integrated. It's being integrated into America fairly well at the moment now, finally. But when I first started doing it, it was quite polarizing. I wouldn't be able to play it in my sets necessarily. I'd play like two songs and then the crowd would go flat. They wouldn't know what to do. Like the dancing thing was quite difficult for them to comprehend. And whereas it's funny because in different countries like Australia, where I'm from, drum and bass is quite big and it's a normal thing over there. Same with like New Zealand and the UK and Europe and stuff like that. So it was just a bit of like just needed to rethink how I was going to be able to like make this work, basically. It's been a really cool journey to be able to also like utilize it as a way to sort of get potentially get more into the UK as well as New Zealand and Australia. That wasn't like that my Blanke project wasn't quite infiltrating in the same sort of way. So but yeah, because it was so polarizing, it seemed to make the most sense stylistically and artistically to kind of like separate it off. So especially when you've got like fairly like drum and bass heavy I guess heads you would probably call them, and say other countries and things like that. So say in the UK, like they heard one of my drum and bass tracks and then they go to my Blanke project and go, yeah, I'm going to go check out this guy, go to my Blanke artist profile on Spotify, and they go, oh, there's like Talk to You and Crashing Hard now and like all these like melodic records. They'd be like, well, what's going on here, sort of thing. So I feel like it's to me and to us it made the most sense to kind of separate it off in that sense. But in like a stylistic and artistic sense, it just felt right. Like it still feels quite like a different genre. Like, yeah, you're sort of saying like dubstep and melodic dubstep, they work together. Mid-tempo sort of works in there with it, kind of. But that was like sort of an era that I had and have kind of moved away from that a little bit now as well. But it still worked in the EDM realm. Whereas the drum and bass thing, I think is just that little bit separate. It's the same with like if I was to do like deep house or like a house alias or something. Like if I started doing like tech house, like stuff like Fisher, like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think that would necessarily, I would be able to like maybe slot in one or two here and there. Like I've got a bass house record that I've got working on for my EP later on. And it's like, but it still feels like it fits in the dubstep realm. Like I can still play that. It's got a halftime moment. Like it's got this whole thing. So like that kind of still works in that area. You know what I mean? Whereas the drum and bass thing hasn't quite fit in the same sort of way yet. And it also, but like, again, so artistically, it also is it just felt like a cool time and space for me to be able to go, okay, I can do like a whole new vision with this and create more of a story. So as like with the sets that I was doing in my headline tour at the start of 2023 and now moving into 2024, I'll be doing like an Aeon mode set as a support, and then there'll be like a main support, and then Blanke will be like the main set, as opposed to like blending them all together in the one set. This feels like a really cool like separation of I can like create this whole world in the stars and galaxy, but also make it all make sense with the Blanke world as well. You can see that in like the tour artwork that I've done. It's all still it's also realistically based. Like it's all still very it lives in the same world in the sense of like you've got Earth and then you've got the stars. So it's like it still like kind of makes sense visually, and I can create this story about like, okay, cool, I'm taking off into this new sort of space, and that is me going into like this drum and bass world. And then when I come back down to Earth, it's back to Blanke. So I can artistically meld these worlds together fairly seamlessly, which I think is really cool and has been super fun to explore as an artist.
Yeah, that's absolutely awesome. And it's funny, I feel like, you know, we caught your set in Amsterdam for ADE at the Monster Cat showcase, and it was kind of interesting to see. You know, you had one room doing kind of more of the melodic and dubstep, and you had one room doing pretty much straight DMB, and the DMB room was absolutely packed the entire time. Like everyone was there just like until the very end. So it's cool to see. You're right, and obviously we are pretty, jaded with the kind of genres that are pretty popular here, but like you said, it is a growing scene in the United States. When we talked with you last time on Groove Cruise a year ago, you said it was still kind of getting integrated, it was still making its way in the States. From what we're seeing, you're seeing pretty mainstream artists do DMB sets now. You saw Illenium just do a straight DMB set. You saw so many commercial artists doing straight DMB sets, and the sets are always packed. I think it's pretty safe to say also, when I ask people how they got into DMB, Blanke comes up a lot. Like that seems to be like a pretty common thing. Oh yeah, I got into, Blanke was doing a lot of DMB sets or DMB tracks in his sets, and that really got me into it. And I started exploring other. I feel like that's actually how I even found Pendulum. Like I just listened to their new EP because he kind of posted it. Sick, absolutely sick. So, what are your thoughts? Like, how does it feel being almost like a leader in the States when it comes to DMB, as opposed to, some maybe DMB artists that are a lot more popular across the rest of the globe?
Yeah, it's surreal for sure to kind of start realizing that is becoming a thing. I think there are other drum and bass acts going on in America, obviously, and huge props to them because they're pushing this shit like super hard as well. They have dedicated projects to it, and it's amazing. I feel like my role in this is kind of being the link between, say, somewhere like the UK that has like one of the biggest drum and bass presence in the world. To be the link between America and them, to be able to like kind of show America that, hey, this stuff is where the roots kind of really come from, and it's really fucking awesome. So I'm just kind of like being like, here, I'm just presenting it. That's all. That's kind of what I'm trying to do.
Just a funnel from the rest of the world.
It's like a funnel. Yeah, exactly. And so like having the sets be separate in the shows as well means that like I'm not ramming it necessarily down their throats in the sense of like it's not in the middle of a Blanke set. I'm not playing half an hour of drum and bass or 45 minutes of drum and bass in the middle of a Blanke set saying like you need to listen to this. It's more like hey, like I'm going to play this whole set. Be very like you are now aware of this. This is how it's branded. This is how it's like set up in the lineup. If you want to come see it, great. If you don't have to be there that early. But if you are that early and you go, okay, cool, I haven't actually been to a drum and bass set before, because I feel like a drum and bass set, like a good drum and bass set, is like, not to be dramatic, but like is life changing. But because I mean, like I remember the first drum and bass set I saw, it was like Shock One. I was in Australia. It was at my club that I was like working at. Years and years and years ago, and it was just like a good proper drum and bass set, all like full drum and bass set. It just go like the energy is insane. It's almost similar to like a full house set, right? So if you're like not a house head and someone plays like a little bit of house in a dubstep set, it's like cool, that's like a fun little bit. But if you're like go to the warehouse at EDC or whatever it is, or whatever festival you're at, and like really immerse yourself in that set, it's a totally different experience. And it's a similar thing with drum and bass. So it's kind of like just presenting what this could be. But yeah, so I guess it's nice I mean, like I look up to all these artists in the UK too. So it's like a fucking wild realization that like they are also the ones that think that, oh, like Blanke is the guy to go to when it comes to like drum and bass in America. So it's really just a surreal kind of I don't know how I ended up in this place, but it's like it's fucking awesome to be here for sure. I feel like I have a little bit of responsibility now, and I'm kind of realizing that. I'm like, oh, okay, I need to make sure that like the stuff that I'm doing is really, really up to standard, and that like I'm putting these guys on the pedestal that they sort of deserve. And it's super cool to see them starting to really come over and do the most. I mean, like on the weekend, I was at EDC in Orlando, and Wilkinson was playing at like 7 or 8 o'clock at night. It was dark. There was like 20,000 people there. And it was after Crank That. So he was playing balls out dubstep. And so for Wilkinson to come on and play 60 minutes of drum and bass to an EDC crowd, and all of them stayed, if not like, and there was more people coming in. Like it wasn't like it was like kind of this weird vibe and they didn't quite get it. No, it was like a proper like circuit ground set. Like it was insane. And that was one of the first, like that was another step up, because there's been lots of tangible moments of seeing it like really infiltrate the States. That was one of the moments where both of us, like he was like playing and he looked over to me because I was like on this little platform over there, and he was just, we were both just like, this is fucking crazy. And we both talked about it a bunch afterwards, and it was super, super cool. If anyone doesn't know who Wilkinson is, he's like a huge act in the UK for drum and bass. Definitely check it out. He does like some more like not poppy drum and bass, but like sort of infiltrates that world. It's not like super heady or anything. It's very accessible. But he does like a wide range of D&B, and it's fucking amazing. So yeah, that was really, really cool to see. Yeah, an EDC crowd just like go absolutely ham to a whole drum and bass set. So it's feeling good.
Pretty cool. Yeah, we saw a part of Wilkinson, I think, at Freaky Deaky. Yeah, it was in the rain too. Something about drum and bass in the rain hits a little different, I think.
Yeah, the vibe was
it was really cool.
Yeah, that rain was chaotic too. It was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
But
also kind of curious, because to your point, I think DMB actually has a lot of diversity within it as well. I think like one example I can bring up is Hybrid Minds. I think they're also based in the UK, and they do like way more like chill. It's not even exactly like liquid DMB, but like kind of like how melodic house is like very, soothing and relaxing. They kind of do that thing as well. So I guess like one question for you, especially as you've kind of grown, because like I remember at one point when you were like testing Aeon mode as part of like your Blank project, where you'd like transition in and out of it, and now you're doing entirely different sets. Do you think there's like different angles on D&B that you'd be interested in trying?
Yeah, I think I need to be careful about like what approach I take to how I like what I make for Aeon mode. Blank is very open format, and that's amazing. And I don't know if I want to necessarily bring that over into the Aeon mode thing. Like I kind of want to be like, okay, stick to somewhat of like I want a foundation in terms of like what I sound like, and then also be able to like, I don't think you should never test other things out. Like I'll definitely be doing liquid drum and bass stuff. I mean, I have a track called Surface that I don't know what the fuck that is, to be honest. Like what genre that would be. But there's always space to be trying different things. I really enjoy the dance floor, like heavy stuff in the drum and bass world. But then you've got other sections like Jump Up, which is it's kind of like the equivalent of rhythm in a weird way to America sort of thing. Like this is kind of really abrasive, like hectic, crazy, clubby sort of stuff. And that's huge in the UK right now, and Australia, and New Zealand. But yeah, I think there's always space to explore for sure. And I do enjoy the kind of lower, slower, liquidy vibes as well. I don't really tend to gravitate towards that when I create, but I usually just kind of go heavy and hard, and in terms of like just the way that it feels. It can still be melodic, like you've got Alchemy, but that still feels like a dance floor kind of track. Like it's still quite large. So I think that's kind of where I sit in this whole world. But yeah, as I say, there's always room to explore.
That's awesome. I think kind of as we kind of are talking about, the differences between your Aeon mode set and your Blank set, and it's always cool to see, especially when you do the earlier Aeon mode sets, you have a lot of support acts in between too, which is really cool. So kudos, because like people show up to the Aeon mode sets. The rooms are pretty packed. I've been onto those sets, and people stick around for all the supporting acts, which is awesome. That's great to see big artists kind of supporting smaller artists in that regard. One thing I always wanted to know though is, you had, when you go play your Aeon mode sets, you wear all black, and then when you do your Blank sets, you wear white or earth tones or something like that. What's the symbolism behind the dichotomy there of the the dark and the light between your two sets, or is it just really cool to wear black and white in a set?
Well, I mean, if you think about the two like spaces that they occupy, basically like blank is the earth, blank create represents like that blank canvas, and those two things to me kind of felt more white too. It kind of was an accident when I first started wearing. I just didn't want to wear black anymore. Like when it was years ago, and I was like, I'm gonna try just something different, and I was like, I actually quite enjoyed that, and that was cool. And then when the Aeon mode thing came along, I was like, this is a hilarious opportunity to dig deeper into that. And so because it belongs in space is obviously quite dark. So it kind of represents like that world. So being able to like visually, physically represent each different one when I'm playing is really symbolic for me, and I think is very tangibly symbolic for the crowd as well. But essentially it just plays off the earth and the stars idea. Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, I just want to say once again, on behalf of Neon Owl, thank you again so much for, really joining us and talking through your different experiences as you grow this project. Really excited for what's to come with Eon Mode. So just to wrap it up, one final question for you. What are you most excited about for 2024 with the project? And are there any, causes that you care a lot about that, you'd want more of our audience to learn more about?
Yeah, I mean, 2024 feels like it's going to be, for me personally, a really big year for the project. Purely because now I've finally launched the project on its own, and there's a lot of time and space and energy going into what's going to be happening next year. I've been to the UK a lot in the past couple of months, just going over there and like doing shows, but also like spending a lot of time in the studio with a lot of these guys I look up to, the guys like Metric and Subfocus and Dimension and Culture Shock, the leaders sort of thing, doing their thing over there, getting in the studio with them, getting collaborations going, and like working a lot in making in getting them over here as well as me getting over there, and like really creating this highway between the two worlds, between the two regions, I guess. So a lot of that is going to be manifesting itself over the next year. So there'll be a lot of music coming out, a lot of really exciting collaborations. The project's just going to continue sort of growing over that time with the tour for one, but also doing more dedicated shows to the Aeon thing as well. It's kind of, there's lots of awesome stuff in the works, in talks at the moment, with trying to grow this thing out. So yeah, it's going to be the first sort of big growing year for Aeon Mode, and that is just exciting in itself. So yeah, it'll be great.
Are there any upcoming releases or shows that you want us to showcase in the Neon Owl community, or anything you want us to kind of get those pre-saves going or something along those lines?
Right now, there will be, it's not announced, but there will be something coming on the Deadbeats and Brownies and Lemonade compilation, which is, funnily enough, when we're talking about the genre thing, it's a much more chilled, sort of like dark liquid D&B vibe, which is, I've had this in the vault for a while, and we just didn't really know what to do with it, and this was like the perfect opportunity to put it out. So when that comes about, we'll definitely get on top of that, because that's super exciting. The Metric collab would be great as well. That's been out for a few weeks, and it's almost at 500,000 streams, or it is at 500,000 streams. Where is it actually? And we've got the tour. Oh yeah, it's at 500,000. So we've got the tour coming as well, which is going to be the next sort of big thing, I guess, when it comes to shows. I've been doing a lot of the festivals, but this is going to be like a proper Aeon showcase with the Blanke thing as well. So the tour is fully announced now, and pre-sale goes on tomorrow, which is Thursday. So wherever we're at with the ticket sale links and stuff like that, we'll definitely run that.
Awesome. Yeah, we're sure our audience would, love to be a part of that, to, keep following you and everything else that's going on. And also, as you may know, Neon Owl is really, really huge on philanthropy. A lot of our events will get proceeds, and we'll donate them to charities like animal shelters, mental health organizations. So of course, if you ever want to work with us on any of that, please don't hesitate to reach out. And yeah, just once again, thank you so much for taking the time to interview.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me on, guys. It's always good to talk to you.